Ladies and gentlemen, this is Beers and Bullshit. I'm your host, Cole, and welcome to another episode. Really appreciate you guys joining me here. This week, we'll be talking with my producer, editor, and the other man who kind of makes this podcast happen, Mr. Paul Wolfe. Paul, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm very well, actually, and I'm pleasure to be here.
Fantastic, man. I really enjoyed having you on. This is kind of something that just came up out of the blue, obviously, with the podcast. One day I was just sitting kind of there at work, hanging out, just wondering how to fill my time. Really, I do a lot of documentary watching and researching on my individual time, and it's like I have a lot of useless facts, but I also enjoy people who present them too, and so figured why not talk about it. So I appreciate you kind of giving me the opportunity, putting me on, and helping out here, bud. So thank you.
Not a problem, man. It's always nice to see new faces out here and people just trying to do something new because, you know, in this long time of quarantine and everything, I'm sure a lot of people have just been bored with a lot of things, losing either jobs or other, you know, side gigs that they'd like to do. So it's just awesome to see other people come out and do some shit and have you coming out and doing your stuff. It's awesome. And I love having you guys over here.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, let's make 2021 the year of productivity and leave all that 2020 nonsense in the past.
Amen.
Moving on here, what we are drinking on tonight, just because this is the Beers and Bullshit podcast, so we're always going to be drinking at least something going on. And tonight I got here the Apricot Blonde. It's a blonde ale with fruit from the Lupulin Brewing Company in Big Lake, Minnesota. It was kind of funny to find this one out. I actually had some relatives growing up in Big Lake, Minnesota, rather small town, probably I believe about 5,000 to 10,000 people if my memory serves me right. So just kind of crazy to just randomly pick up a beer from Boyd's Beer Market, liquor store, whatever you want to call it, on Mount Rushmore Road here in Rapid. Another shout out to them. But yeah, just kind of small world how that comes full circle with local beers here. So once again, that is the Apricot Blonde from the Lupulin Brewing Company in Big Lake, Minnesota. And I got to say, so far, it's a fantastic beer. Not too sweet, but also, you know, a really, really light beer that you can kind of sit back and if you're not much of a beer drinker, kind of introduce yourself into. So, Paul, how you liking it so far?
You know, it's definitely something different. I'm not much of a beer drinker myself, but, you know, personally, I do like this one. The fruit is something, you know, the apricot, honestly, is it's high in there.
We used to have it was called the Stiegler Grapefruit Radler, and then I believe they had an apricot one as well, if I'm not mistaken, when I was living out in Vegas. And this beer kind of reminds me of that. Not as sweet because that was more of an apricot cider. This one obviously being a blonde ale, a little bit more hoppy, a little bit more around that traditional beer profile. But yeah, definitely a good beer. You know, if you're kind of a light beer drinker but want to branch out a little bit. Anyways, let's just go ahead and kick it right into business here. I'm going to be interviewing Paul tonight. Paul is a car salesman, works with me at Liberty Superstores, but is also an aspiring rap and hip-hop artist. He owns his own studio, TopWav Studios here in Rapid City. It's the studio that actually makes this podcast possible. Paul, let's start with you, man. I mean, born and raised from Rapid City, right?
Yes, sir. I was actually, well, not technically, born in Arizona, raised in Rapid City.
Okay, gotcha. Where in Arizona were you born?
I was born in Phoenix.
Okay. And it's probably grown a lot since then, the past 20 plus years.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't actually been back since I was born there, actually.
Really?
Yep. I was like born I think I was like 6 months old. We moved here. And then, you know, I moved around to South Dakota a little bit, but most of the time grew up here.
I was about to say, you kind of pulled the reverse snowbird. Usually people get old and they move from South Dakota to Arizona. You pulled the flip-flop, came out the womb, and you're like, no, let's go where it's cold.
Exactly.
Well, more like your mom.
Yeah, I had no choice in it. Probably would have definitely gone to Arizona and stayed in Arizona.
Right. So you guys moved to South Dakota. You're 6 months old. Obviously, memory's not kicking in for a couple of years, but kind of take me through early childhood with you, man. I mean, anything, you know, crazy happened to you? I mean, growing up, I mean, take me through the early years.
You know, nothing too crazy. It's basically, you know, just pretty basic, you know, kid. Stuck to myself throughout school and everything. You know, had some friends, didn't make the best choices, but decided to kind of, you know, flip the script on life and, you know, make some things possible and make a change for everybody kind of after I got out of high school and everything. And now, you know, out here 20 years, you know, I skipped through, obviously I'm just skipping through elementary, middle school, because that's just nonsense really, you know. You just, you know, nothing happened there really. But through high school and everything, I guess when I was 17 years old, I really started getting into music. I had a buddy who could, you know, rap and he could do it pretty well, just freestyling. So I always kind of wanted to be as good as him. So, you know, he was always a lot better than me. So after years and years of practice, I just wanted to keep doing it. And now here I am today recording and got the studio. So we're making dreams happen.
Step by step, man. I gotta love it, you know. And obviously, like, he kind of passed over, you know, childhood. Sure, it's important and everything, but I feel like the real crucial years when you're kind of coming into it, high school plays an important factor. But I'd kind of say the same for myself. You know, growing up, born and raised from Rapid City, pretty basic upbringing. You know, everybody can kind of go through their own story. But at the end of the day, you find a lot of kids with kind of the same one. But really, after high school, I think is something I relate on to as far as kind of where I found a little bit more of a purpose, a little bit more of a drive. Even lost myself for a couple of years, you know, but obviously it doesn't matter as long as you get back on track. And I think that's the great thing overall, is just to get yourself out there, make the mistakes, you know, first off. So if anybody's making mistakes out there, just know you're not alone, and just keep it kind of going from there.
Exactly.
But this music thing kind of came out of nowhere. When I started working with you at Liberty, you were kind of this goofy little kid. We called you Squints all the time, just as a joke, because you got these, you know, you had these black glasses, and you kind of reminded me of Squints from The Sandlot. You know, just this goofy guy. I mean, full of charisma, and you always made us laugh. We always messed with you. But then out of nowhere, it's just like I see you starting to freestyle and rap on Snapchat and stuff, and then all of a sudden it's, hey, I got a studio open up, and I see you up in here doing drywall and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, this kid's actually making this happen. And I got respect for the grind, just because Tommy, actually someone you work with down at the Volkswagen store, I was good friends with him a couple of years back. Tommy Bagnishi, shout out T Money, aka Architect, aka the dopest freestyler in 605. You still need to challenge him, Paul. But
I have tried.
Yeah, it's the family man now. He can't let that side back out.
Exactly. He tries every once in a while, but you know, we'll unleash the beast one day, or maybe even the beasts.
Yeah, right. Pick him as Eminem. He's got like 3 different alter egos. I could tell you though, I've seen that man. I've sat.
He's also talking cash flow.
Oh yeah. Shout out Jace. I'm definitely friend of the cast. You will see him here shortly. Jace's bougie ass is down in Mexico right now on vacation. So Jace, I love you. Come back safe. But fuck you for leaving the country and going on vacation, bud. So, but you know, obviously we kind of jump around here a little bit, you know, talking about your upbringing, music and all of that, you know, kind of where you are now, setting up in Rapid City, trying to make this music thing happen, you know, just going at it, haters, you know, and believers aside, whatever. Who were your actual influences growing up? Like, who did you listen to a lot that kind of started the click in your head of, you know what, maybe I could do this myself?
Honestly, like I said, I had that buddy who could freestyle. And that was the first time I ever really understood that I kind of had a passion for music. I also kind of just have a big passion for the English language as it is. So my 2 biggest influence at the beginning of it were definitely like my peers and like teachers and stuff like that, just kind of helping me even with basic poetry, kind of getting to learn that kind of stuff and growing up with that. But as a transition to actual music artists that kind of inspired me, I'd have to say one of my first inspirations that inspired me to actually do something as an artist was this guy named Analyst, which I don't know if many of you guys here or have heard about.
Analyst, a triple threat, right?
Yes, sir. Analyst and Triple Threat. But that was the song, actually. That was one of the songs that got me going with him. You know, I listened to that and I was like, dang, this guy is really cool. So he had like all his socials and stuff. I messaged him and, he messaged me back and we talked a little bit and I sent him a freestyle and he was like, okay, you know, work on this. And that inspired me in itself because, you know, you don't get a lot of people who get millions of views and still talk to people like they're just everyday people. So they like having somebody like that really pushed me to really start doing this. Of course, I had some like above ground artists that pushed me through my high school years and everything that kind of helped me out. Like, you know, honestly, G-Eazy helped me out a lot through high school. Just some fresh tunes, the vibes. A lot of Logic, as Logic started coming up in like 17, 18. X is a big inspiration just because of his creativity for me. He was always willing to do something different. And I think that's what a lot of music lacks today is different. You know, a lot of people try to do the same stuff and be like anybody else.
Oh, of course. And I think that's a hard part with modern music. And we'll probably touch on that a little bit more later. And it's kind of crazy even just seeing the handful of year difference because you're what, 22 years old?
21.
21, gotcha. So yeah, you're freshly 21 years old. I'm sitting in here at 26, almost 27. I mean, not even close to a generation apart, maybe a high school, graduating class worth. As far as years apart, and it's just kind of crazy to see the musical influences. So for me personally, I'd probably say rap and hip hop was definitely my number one category. I try to be a student of music. I mean, I listen to everything from I'll listen to classical music, Mozart and Beethoven, pretty basic, but a couple of the favorites I've had, all the way up to, modern age music and almost everything in between. But as far as hip hop goes, I'd probably trace my musical influences, back to Eminem would definitely be number one. Being a white boy from the Midwest, growing up in the early 2000s, I don't think if you liked hip hop, you didn't listen to him. I mean, that was the kind of the craziest thing going on back when I remember, because I remember right after the Slim Shady LP came out, before the Eminem show came out, or maybe it was the Marshall Mathers LP came out, I had heard Eminem for the first time. And so I kind of started listening to him against my parents' wishes, because I had uncles who were amazing influences, but had better music in their car than my parents did. And so I just kind of started listening to it. And then I remember getting my first Eminem album, the Slim Shady LP, was edited. Thank you, Mom, for buying my CDs at Walmart. But just growing up, kind of growing up around the Eminem movement, which is unique in its own right. I got introduced to other classic artists. I mean, we're talking, the Mount Rushmore / Hall of Fame of hip hop. We're talking Nas, Biggie, Pac, NWA. I mean, the list goes on as far as, old MCs go. Run DMC to a point, even though they were more poppy than what I liked back in the day. Mad respect for them now. It's just kind of crazy, to wrap it back around and talk about. I'm talking about guys that, your uncles and dad probably talk about, and you're over here. I mean, mad respect to G-Eazy and Logic. It's crazy to see the generations, but it's also awesome to see the influences in the new generation, because when I do look at a Logic or a G-Eazy, I see a little bit of that Eminem. I see a little bit of, Outkast in that, a little bit of Andre 3000 with the creativity and the lyrics. I see the NWA, the lyricism and the smooth flow that, Cube kind of brought to the table with his words, and Easy and Dre and everything that they brought together. It's awesome to see it evolve. And that's kind of, I guess, one thing. What do you see with music as it evolves over time? And some people would say de-evolve, but especially with the hip hop game, what have you seen evolve?
Well, I think, the biggest thing in everybody's day-to-day life is change, but everybody's scared to accept it, especially with something that's so, important in their life. And music is a big importance in a lot of people's lives, whether they think it or not, if they use it as background, just background ear noise or whatever they actually use music for. So a lot of people do say it devolves because they don't go with the ways, but ultimately I think the way that music has evolved and is evolving is a way of, tired of hearing the same stuff and want to find different stuff that still sounds pleasing to the ear. There is obviously a lot of mumble music, I'd say, not necessarily just in the rap category, but I'd say a lot of a lot of genres have gotten stretched out to multiple different subgenres and everything to, kind of, and some people's eyes destroy the genre. But I think it's actually, a beautiful thing to see, because it's music as itself is an art and should always be thought of as that. So the creativity, if somebody wants to make something and it sounds good to one person, it's awesome, whatever. If it sounds good to 1,000 people, it's awesome. But ultimately, I think no matter which way music is going, it always sounds, good to somebody. So I think there's a big stopping point where music almost just sounded the same for years, and that was probably early, I guess mid 2000s, 2010. I'd say 2010 era. A lot of the music kind of started sounding very similar. A lot of artists kind of started copying each other and everything. I give you specific examples, but I have the memory of a squirrel, so I probably couldn't do that.
Well, I could probably tell you, obviously, just being a little bit older at the time, I can definitely kind of relate. All respect to Flo Rida, in general, because I feel like he did it the best. And so I'm not disrespecting him at all. But around that time, you kind of started to see this lazy techno rap to the point where the beats were very simplistic. I mean, even nowadays in some of the mumble rap I hear, even then, I'm just that's just an evolution of, of club rap, which is what we heard. I mean, if anybody thinks that Triple X is less lyrically inclined than Young Jock. I just look at the lyrics, I mean, put him up next to each other, mad respect to Young Jock, but he was playing club anthems most of the time. Definitely had some lyrical stuff out there, but that's not what's popped, over time, we've always had this music that's appealing to the masses. It's appealing to the eardrums. It's just appealing to people because they don't really have to sit there and listen to it. And everybody's going to complain. I feel like it's older people's job to just sit here and just shit on the music that we have today and just be like, well, it's not as good as, when I was there, modern day rock bands are never going to be as good as Bob Seger. Okay, what do you know? You listened to Bob Seger your whole life with no mixing and mastering on just a raw album. So when you come in here and you check out a modern day band, like me personally, I Prevail, which is a complete separate categories, and I'm not at all making a comparison. It's just crazy that some people can't just look at all of music and appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. There's good music and there's bad music in every single year. But it's just crazy to see the evolution of it because I'll be listening to classic rock and we're talking like Stones, like on like authentic albums. And even with mixing and mastering, you can just tell the complexity has grown over time just with the technology that we have. Like, of course, everything is going to sound a little bit different now. I mean, we didn't have computers to do this work a handful of years ago. Producers used to just sit at a table and just have to work levels until it sounded good. Nowadays, it's a completely different game out there, and I think it's almost unfair to compare eras and instead of just enjoying them. If you're going to compare them, you can compare album sales to streams. You can do that little conversion if you want to really have a debate at the end of the day, but maybe I think
lyrics too.
Lyrics and hip hop. Because I've seen songwriting that lasts throughout the generations. I mean, there's guys who write songs just as good now that are, top 20 hits, and Freddie Mercury, same thing. People shit on Freddie Mercury back in the day because, well, he was a queen. And, the songs were a little too flamboyant for him at the time. But now you're talking We Will Rock You and just, everything is, a number one hit of all time. Wasn't that way when actually Freddie was really around. So it's funny how just history kind of changes the perception on everything.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I definitely agree with a lot of statements you were saying there. Ultimately, I think with music and as music continues to grow, once we only have a couple, we have quite a few words, obviously, in the English language, but once everything's said, a lot of people just try to find different ways to say it. And when you try to find different ways to say it, I think that's how music will have to go for the years to come. I mean, what are you going to be listening to? And, if we're here in 2040, 2030, it's a lot of the stuff's going to be repetitive until people find a different way. And who knows, maybe we won't even have like an actual music in 2040 or 2030. Maybe it'll be like back to classical music is the new thing.
But, ukuleles and spring flutes, and because the image you had in my head, because you're sitting here talking about, where's music going to evolve, and I'm just going back like 400 or 500 years to, some little guy in a court jester's costume with a little mini guitar, the do 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 do, little flute in the background, just some Game of Thrones shit.
Yeah, but no, it's definitely a crazy aspect to think about, and I think a lot of people are close to the evolution, and obviously that's going to hurt music in the long run. But at the same time, music, like everything else, everybody listens to it. At least I believe everybody listens to it or puts some form of, background thoughts or talks, podcasts, for instance, or, something in the background to live their day-to-day life. And everything evolves and people just need to accept it, like you were saying.
Exactly. We could just end it there.
Exactly.
Just needs to evolve. And point right there. Take a sip. And we're going to move on here. And moving on here, when we're talking about comparisons, whenever I see you on Snapchat, just kind of fucking around with your freestyles, I can't help to think that you remind me of a White Logic, which kind of just makes me laugh all the time. So obviously Logic's already halfway there. So if you're a White Logic, you got to be pretty damn white to be to be a White Logic. But yeah, let's go ahead and just sample some of the music right now so some of the people can know what we're talking about.
I don't want the fame, I just want you in my bed like
Why you in my head like? Yeah, I think I got it like it's limelight. I be coming like I'm on my fucking grind. I don't know, but I see it through my hindsight. Rear view, but I get it in my mind's right. I be running like I'm on the fucking limelight. I be coming in my heart is on this lifeline. I be coming back with some white wine. Baby mama tripping, she be so fine. So fine, I don't even know why. Pain, I don't ever feel the same, yeah. They been switching on their lanes, yeah. They can switch up on the gang. Any minute they can change, but I don't ever chill with lanes, nah.
I don't really like to chill with lames. I've been posted with my gang. South Dakota got them planes. I've been coming how I wanna, but I always stay the same. Somehow I just go with that, but I won't say that I will change. Flame coming out the cage, unleash me, I am a beast. Yeah, you got to go and take. Yeah, I'm breaking off my leash. Yeah, I ain't posted with my team, and you know we all gon' eat. I've been coming from the west, but I'm tucked up in the east.
Thank you, Paul, for sharing some of your music with us. It was the first couple of times I heard those tracks, and actually, I know I said Logic beforehand, and usually I kind of get that vibe just watching some of the freestyle videos that you put out, but with those songs, I actually kind of got a little bit more of a sing rap vibe, something like a Triple X, you know, or even more to a point, probably someone I'm a little bit more familiar with myself, Juice WRLD. Kind of in that same style of mashing up autotune with, you know, a little bit new style beat, singing and rapping at the same time, you know, really expanding the repertoire there. So really appreciate you sharing that with us, Paul.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, those are two songs that are coming out here shortly on an album that I plan on releasing when I get some time to. But, you know, with those, both the biggest thing with my music is I do carry over that freestyle, you know, capability within even my recorded songs. The biggest thing that I like to incorporate is, you know, versatility within my music. So with my, you know, both those songs were still freestyles, but having so many artists come through here gives me a lot of different ways and different takes on how I could go about this whole music thing. So I love sharing it with people, and I love, you know, when people like to, you know, listen to the music, obviously. So I appreciate that.
Well, that's probably one of the greater things about music is it really brings people together. I mean, you can talk about sports bringing people together, but there's people out there who don't like sports, and there's not a lot that kind of crosses races, religion, countries, all of that quite like music does. I mean, you had bands like the Beatles who were worldwide famous, and there's countries they went to where people didn't even know what they were saying in their songs. Same thing, Despacito, probably the most popular song a couple of years back. How many of y'all actually know Spanish? That's the crazy power of music, I think, that we have going into just the world and to where it's just such an avenue just to connect people. And that's probably, I think personally, the most beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that 100%. It's crazy how much, you know, something so simple can actually not even so simple because it's obviously very hard, but something so little, I should say, to a lot of people could mean the most to very many at the same time.
Well, and that's where I think I'm going to transition into our next point, because music, I would probably say for me, has literally been a lifesaver at times. Just kind of everybody goes through their own stuff, and it feels like it's more and more talked about today. Anybody dealing with downtimes, any sort of mental health issues, anxiety, depression, ADHD, bipolar. I mean, just kind of anything to go along with that. It's becoming more and more of a talked about topic nowadays, but I feel like music is definitely one thing that kind of helps anybody, whether you're dealing with a condition issue, whatever you want to call it, or just having a bad time with life. That's kind of one thing, is music can literally save your life. And, you know, before the show, I think Paul and I were just kind of talking about a couple of different either artists or albums, our own selves, that, I mean, practically saved our lives. Yeah, I mean, there's no way to be coy about it. You know, just times where it was just kind of a dark moment or a rough time, or, you know, you're just kind of wondering, what do I do? How do I make it through this? And obviously it's all very in the moment at the time, and, you know, you make it through in the end, but it's so important of just getting the mentality right and trying to help you and giving you that extra boost to jump over. So let's go into a top 5 list. We'll start with number 5, Paul. Who do you think your number 5 all-time artist would be?
You know, for number 5, if we're ranking them, and no hate to them if they ever do hear this podcast, but I'd have to say G-Eazy's probably number 5 for me. Just because he helped, you know, build up, honestly, probably a lot of confidence within myself and within my music throughout my younger years of life. But, to this day, I'm not still bumping a lot of G-Eazy music, but I also haven't seen a lot of drops from him, so that might be on him.
And one crazy thing with G-Eazy is probably about the same time you were getting into him, by same time everybody was almost getting into him, is the time that I found G-Eazy. And I actually remember the second I listened to my first G-Eazy music video. I was sitting in my apartment, 19 years old, with my roommate, Chris Medina at the time. Shout out, Chris. Love you, bro. And he's giving me a haircut because I was 19 and 21-year-old kids. It was a lot cheaper for us to do that and save the money. Plus, Chris wasn't bad with a pair of clippers. Got a couple of nice fades on the respect of him. But we're sitting there in my living room, plastic wrap around the floors, making sure we don't get any hair on the floor. And we're just going through YouTube, picking all these different artists. And I think that was probably about the same day I found Analyst too. But we popped on this kid from the Bay Area. And I mean, I think the first video we watched was Almost Famous. And it was just so crazy watching just the transitions and just the one-takenness, of how they shot that whole music video. It's probably still to this day one of my favorite music videos. And I love G-Eazy for it. I got so obsessed with him. That whole entire album, I think it's People Always Talking Shit is the name of the album. And he just blew up from there. And obviously the story kind of goes from there. G-Eazy's rise to fame, the Me, Myself, and I's and all these different songs. But I feel like where he kind of capped out was everything with Halsey. And it sucks to see relationship drama, kind of tank somebody's career. And love you, G, but if you ever hear this, but Team Halsey, when it kind of comes down to that, I feel like she has not only won that breakup, she has gotten amazing musically. Everybody knows a breakup album for a female is going to get you platinum. And that is, that's kind of the funny part where G-Eazy got his comeuppance and where the music world was just kind of like, yeah, fuck you, Gerald. So
100%.
Yeah. And like I said, it's just so crazy to see in the rap game where it's not exactly being in a monogamous lifestyle is not glamorized in the rap game. It's actually the opposite. That's true. So it's kind of crazy to see a rapper taken down for that. Not saying he deserved it or that he didn't. Just a different perspective of how everything else has went down. But like I said, love you, Halls. Respect to Halsey. And I'm going to kind of volley back and forth with you here a little bit. I'm going to go off of my top 5 list, but mine is top 5 albums that saved your life or saved my life. And at number 5, I've actually got a little bit of a two-way tie. It's going to be either the albums Lifelines or Trauma, both by the band I Prevail. Now, I Prevail was a band, they kind of got their first start doing a blank space cover of the song by Taylor Swift and blew up from there. Lifelines was the first project they put out after I found them. They had Love, Lust, and Liars before then that they had put out, and I liked the album. It was a good album. It was a good introduction. But Lifelines, for me, has a lot of very important songs that kind of brought me through a lot of rough times in my life. The title song of that album, Lifelines, is actually probably still to this day one of my favorite songs. And they just kind of go over a lot of other different things in there. They talk about dealing with, just kind of confidence issues and different mental health issues, also going through relationship and breakup issues. And just from where I was at the time, that was probably one of the better albums for me. And they back-to-backed it with Trauma, kind of going with the same vibes. They're this alternative emo rock band. And, same thing, the album is all over with messages of, self-confidence, but also, just dealing with a lot of the issues that go on day in and day out. And I think both of these albums, I have most of them on my Spotify playlist, most of the songs. And so that's why I put that as a kind of combined number 5. Definitely one of my favorite bands I found in the past 5 years. I don't know how much you are on I Prevail's radar, but they are phenomenal.
I've actually never listened to them, and I'm definitely going to have to go check them out after this. So, thanks for giving me another source of music there.
Of course. Always. That's always what I'm here for. I'm always here to share music with everybody else. Pretty sure my mom knows that one best. Most of her Amazon playlist is us and my brother and I. So when she's riding down the road listening to gangster rap, that is my 29-year-old mother right there. Not going to say her actual age. She'd kill me. But all right, Paul Lee, let's go ahead and bounce back over to you. Number 4 artist that has saved your life.
Oof. Guys, like I said, the ranking system is very hard for me. Honestly, I'd have to say number 4 for me would be probably going to be J. Cole. And especially as of lately, I like J. Cole, and I like it, but for me, I can't listen to the same songs over and over and over again, which is crazy because I record it and I have to listen to it over and over and over again, with my own music and other music as well. But if you're not, I feel like in today's day and age, if you're not consistently dropping, it's very hard to even be on somebody's list. But for back then, when I was going through a lot of stuff, a lot of J. Cole's music kind of helped and put a lot of things into perspective of how, life could be, how life is, how life should be type stuff. So I'd always appreciate him for that kind of music. A lot of his songs just have a lot of meaning to them, and that's what I can always appreciate from somebody who's making music. So I definitely have to classify him as number 4. And I couldn't tell you a favorite song, honestly, just because I have a ton of them. And I was sitting here, Cole messaged me earlier today trying to get me to put a list together, and I was like, holy crap, like, I've been trying to put a list together for years, and I can't do it,
And I told him do it in a couple hours.
Yeah, so, but yeah, no, definitely J. Cole there for that one.
And I think I'd have to, God, me personally, I'd probably put him 2 or 3 for me. Eminem for me is definitely number 1 artist-wise. The only person I'd probably put over him for personal reasons, definitely not skill or at all media appeal, but just personal reasons, the only person I'd put ahead of him is NF for me. And I'll be getting to him in a little bit as far as on the album list, but it's really funny. I'm just going to dive right into my number 4 point because I'm actually going to pick 2014 Forest Hills Drive by J. Cole. J. Cole. I should know the second part of his name by now. I've only been saying it my entire life. Yeah. Whatever. That's cool. J. Cole, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. And I put this one up there because I love this album, man. When you're talking just front to back classic. And also, once again, only album to go platinum with no features. How you doing, J. Cole? But at the end of the day, let's just go ahead and pull up the track list here. I mean, you got Wet Dreams, A Tale of Two Cities, Fire Squad, St. Tropez, GOMD, which is Get Off My Dick, No Role Models, apparently. I mean, just banger after banger, classic after classic. I mean, chart-topping songs that you're talking about there. So obviously the impact is there. I think everybody who studies or listens to hip-hop knows that album. But for me personally, I mean, just a lot of the songs in there just didn't deal with so much of an emotional moment, but this is just an album that I can always pump myself up to. It's an album that gets me through. I work out to it quite a bit. I work out to a lot of J. Cole. I mean, there's just no denying both the classic appeal of this album, and I mean, if you love J. Cole, obviously how high it ranks up. It's either that for me or Sideline Story, because the OG J. Cole album that had a little bit more emotion in it. Lost Ones being a very specific song that I kind of relate to. If you haven't checked that out, go take a listen to it. And if you've ever been through issues like that, you would kind of understand both good and bad sides of it. But yeah, I mean, J. Cole, mad respect, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. And the rest of his album work is phenomenal too. Obviously, those were just the 2 I kind of wanted to highlight off the top, I guess.
100%. Forest Hills Drive is definitely probably my favorite from J. Cole as well. To this day, because I don't think his, what was it? What's one of the latest songs he's dropped? It was like a big one. I should know it, but like I said,
Middle Child.
Yeah, Middle Child. Middle Child was just put J. Cole back on the map realistically.
I don't even know if it's back on the map because I feel like his third album that he came out with, I'm going to go ahead and look up the name here right now, but KOD. Yeah. Or For Your Eyes Only and KOD, his third and fourth album. Highly disrespected albums, I think. Because For Your Eyes Only, I mean, for me personally, songs that I just have on the Spotify playlist, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Immortal, Deja Vu, Neighbors, you got some good songs on there, but it just, after Forest Hills Drive, it was a really hard time, trying to come back from that kind of album because I can't remember if it won a Grammy. I think it got robbed if I remember right. Mm-hmm. Once again, let's just go ahead and say platinum with no features, whatever. But even then, some of the songs you still hear, like apparently still like a top 5, top 10 J. Cole song, No Role Models, Tale of Two Cities. I mean, these are songs that have stood his repertoire test of time. And I'll touch on another album later on my list that kind of has the same effect. Mm-hmm. But it's just crazy because I feel like you can see an album's real depth, not so much in the fact of how it performs in the year of, but how does it last the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Definitely.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we're talking about Theater of Pain from Motley Crue. Fantastic album. Why? Because it stood the test of time over the years.
Exactly. And that is what a lot of music is, How long can it be? I mean, I know both of us weren't born in, you weren't born in the 80s, were you? No,
1994.
Yeah, 94. So, yeah, both of us weren't born in the 80s or anything, but I'm sure we could both still listen to 80s music, and no matter what genre it is, and still know it, and still, even probably sing along to a lot of it. So with that, a lot of that music back then banged and still does bang. So it's awesome to kind of see music go throughout history.
Of course. Another shout out, Appetite of Destruction. Great album by Guns N' Roses. With that, I'm going to kind of touch off here. Paul, for number 3, let's go ahead and get off rap a little bit. I want you to put your favorite rock artist in for number 3. Who is your favorite? And we can go singular or band artist of all time, but who would your number 3 be?
I'd have to say probably it's going to be a band. It's going to be Kiss.
Okay.
Just because as I was growing up, that's really the majority of a lot of the rock music that I heard. My uncle and aunt, who I lived with for a little bit, were very, I guess they listened to Kiss all the time. They actually went to one of their last concerts recently, I think like 2 years ago or something. But with that, I couldn't really name a song for you. Like I said, Memory of a Chipmunk, but as a whole, their music was some of the most music that I had listened to, and I could actually still listen to today. Sometimes when I'm cruising around, I'll put on just the radio and put on the rock station just because, it's nice to listen to different stuff every once in a while. And I definitely have to say that if I were to turn it on to that, I'd definitely jam out. So
I'd say Love Gun or I Was Made for Lovin' You would be my top Kiss songs. I Was Made, and for 2 separate reasons, both movie reasons. God, I can't remember the name, but the movie where Adam Sandler plays that kid where he banged his teacher, that's my boy. When the teacher is walking down the hall originally when they're kids, and it's kind of leading the prequel up to the movie, the teacher's walking down for I Was Made for Loving You. And for some reason, I love that movie. And hearing that song made it one of my favorite Kiss songs. And then Love Gun, also role models. He's explaining to Ronnie, this 7-year-old kid, who's in a Wayward Child program, what Love Gun means and who the band Kiss is, and just a little bit of history behind them in order to try to get him on the fan bus. So it's just kind of hilarious. I mean, Kiss, legendary band, stretching 30 years of hits. But I mean, I know some rock fans that probably wouldn't even know those songs. I Was Made for Loving You, definitely, but I don't know how popular Love Gun is with some people.
Yeah.
And the reason I kind of went on to the rock, direction there is number 3 for me for albums is actually going to be Sound of Madness by Shinedown. So I don't know if you actually have checked into Shinedown at all.
I've heard 1 or 2 songs by Shinedown, but I've never heard that album, I'd say, unless I might have heard a song off the album, but I've never listened to the album as a whole.
Oh yeah, and it's it's a fantastic album. So I got this album my freshman year of high school. I remember buying it at Best Buy, throwing it in my CD player because, I had a ghetto-ass car, and this was still 2008 that we're talking about when my freshman year of high school is. A lot of the cars still had CD players, or you were using the tape converter. But for Sound of Madness, let's see if you check any of these track lists. Starts off with Devour, and then you have the title track, Sound of Madness, Second Chance, The Crow and the Butterfly, If You Only Knew, and then actually a low-key song that is probably my favorite on this album that I actually really didn't grow to love until later in life, and that was Call Me. So what I would do if I were you, man, if you ever have the time to kind of jump into Shinedown's discography a little bit, definitely been one of my favorite bands. Their lead singer, Brett Smith, I believe his name is absolutely phenomenal. If I'm butchering that, I'm sorry. I'm actually going to look it up right now just so no one comes down in the comment section and
what was that album called?
Later. It's going to be Sound of Madness by Shinedown.
Sound of Madness. I'm putting that in my notes right now, and I'm listening to that after this.
Do it up, and that is Brent Smith. Sorry, not Brett. Brent Smith, lead singer of Shinedown. Also,
I hope he never hears this.
Punches me at a show. Yeah, you were that fucking kid that got my name wrong. Acting like I'm going to be famous someday. And I'll shit talk until it happens.
Exactly.
Yep. All right, let's get down to the final four here. Number 2 for you. Who's your artist for number 2?
Number 2, I'd have to say Analyst. If you haven't heard his music, definitely go check him out because Analyst is a complete machine when it comes to lyricism. He doesn't drop many albums per se. So I couldn't tell you a great album from him, but his singles, the singles that I've listened to and had on my playlist for years and years and years, just continuously hit. They're songs that get a couple hundreds of thousand views. Some of them get their actual recognition they deserve, but I really think that he should be top charts with a couple of his songs that are very unrecognized by the mass population. And with that, like I went on at the beginning of the show, he inspired me through a big part of my life because he actually talked to me. And, to this day, I know he does a live stream and everything. You can still go talk to him. And he's way more known today than he was 5-6 years ago when I first started hearing about him. So seeing that in an artist is really cool because a lot of times the lifestyle and the culture could kind of change you and change who you are from the basis. Make you kind of ignorant to the rest of the world and everything. So I respect that about him. And I think that every song that he makes is a great song.
No, definitely. And mad respect to Analyst. Like we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier, I definitely heard Analyst's song Triple Threat. I've done it a handful of times at different karaoke's just because I absolutely love the song. And this is where I'm going to apologize because probably since about 2015, I've definitely slept on Analyst. Didn't know if he was around anymore. I haven't checked out a lot of his new music. We'll have to talk about that afterwards and have you shoot me some of the songs over. Just hearing that you talked to him, because I knew he was from Minnesota, and he was, very close to us as far as rappers, because there's not a lot of rappers out here in the Midwest. You can kind of count them on your hand as far as who's around us. I mean, you got Tech and KC. I actually met a gentleman, Big Reno, who used to rap out of Fargo, North Dakota. You got a couple up based out of Minneapolis, but in Denver too. But there's not a lot that kind of goes in this area right here, and it's rather hard to make a name. I mean, Tech probably showed that shit through years and years and years of running Strange Music, because I heard of him in 2008, and he had been doing music for 8 years at that point. Already had out a lot of albums for me to check out, and even then, God, in the 13 years I've been a Tech 9 fan, God, he's coming out with 5 times as much, almost. It just seems like one year I remember him dropping 3 albums. We're not talking EPs either. We're not talking 7-8 track albums. I'm talking 15, 16, 20 tracks with features. And it's like, this man's doing other work. And so to see that work ethic, and that's what it kind of takes to get out of the Midwest. I respect Analyst. I wish nothing but the best for him. I just hope to see him grow. And like I said, I apologize. I've kind of slept on him a little bit.
Definitely, yeah. You'll definitely have to check out Self by Analyst. That's definitely a bop.
Hopefully, if we talk about this topic in the future, I'm not coming in so dry-footed and ignorant when it kind of comes to it. So, yeah, I'm going to switch over. It's kind of funny how our list has matched vibes a little bit here because 14, I said J. Cole, or you said J. Cole, and then I dropped a J. Cole album.
14, Jesus, this apricot beer must be hitting you.
Yeah, it's the apricot beer.
We're doing top 5 here.
Yeah, top 5. I just decided to go 15. But yeah, backtracking there, number 4. You said J. Cole. I said 2014 Forest Hills Drive by J. Cole. 3, I kind of forced you into a rock category and then rock Shinedown. But you talked about Analyst. For my number 2 on the list, I'm going with The Search by NF. Now, another artist who I think lyrically and especially delivery-wise, when you're talking about modern-day artists that impress me the most, I don't think there's a better rapper in the game today. And I truly mean that, and with all shit, I'm going to back up on that, because the lyricism that he brings to the table, along with just the flawless delivery, the switch-ups, the different kind of rhyme schemes he uses, is all extremely impressive. And then he turns it around and he doesn't swear in any of his music. The guy's an ex-Christian rapper, and that's not something I normally gravitate towards, is non-swearing or even, that style of rap music, but it's just so crazy. And anybody who's probably listened to NF, I feel like, is just a huge fan. He's a top 5 for him. But then for the most part, he's extremely slept on. Like, he had an album placed like number 3 years ago. But when you talk about, in hip hop artists and hip hop heads, even just modern white rappers, he doesn't even make the top 5 list, which is, just fucking nuts to me, because I guess as someone who feels like they have a decent pulse of what's going on in hip hop for a little bit, especially when it comes to more lyrical hip hop, slept on. Hardcore. So I don't know if you've heard The Search yet. It's NF's newest album. It's his 4th installment.
I actually have not, but I do know that NF is definitely probably one of the more lyrically inclined rappers that's out in the game right now, for sure.
Oh, hands down. And just the raw emotion and the realism, I think, how he's willing to kind of open up and talk about a lot of the shit that he goes through is definitely something that I kind of relate with personally, and I think a lot of people do. And it's something that isn't talked about because hip hop, I feel like emotionally was very braggadocious, very battle rap in its infancy. And as far as what music we kind of saw over time is you see a lot of either that. You see a lot of battle rap that's very braggadocious, very cocky, very, me versus you. Mm-hmm. Or you see popular hits where it's just kind of talking about some nonsense. You don't see a lot of these rappers up until the newer age kind of come on. I feel like you get these emotional songs here and there. One that comes to mind is like Stan by Eminem. That was one of the first ones to kind of come through. I'll Be Missing You by, was it Puff Daddy at the time? Whatever P. Diddy is doing with his name. But, I'll Be Missing You after Biggie died. That was kind of another one that, hit. But when you look at the history of hip hop, there's not a lot of emotional rap. And I think that's kind of why he slept on, is because it's not as prevalent in the game.
Exactly. And, all in all, it's the industry and, what it truly is why he slept on too. Of course, you can get your music out there, but I feel like there's a point where a lot of stuff kind of gets blurry for a lot of musicians and artists and, people who are obtaining a certain level of fame in general at all.
Yeah. And it's crazy because you see a lot of artists do that. They go with their debut albums and they absolutely pop off. And then you see them completely switch styles or sell out, as I don't know if I'd refer to it as, but a lot of other people do, to the point where they just get this they get Hollywoodized and they just get turned into what every other artist is on that label, or what every artist they kind of sound like. They just turn into that. And it's crazy to see that, because in NF, I found him after his first album, which I believe is Notepad. And then you got Mansions, and then Therapy Session, and then The Search. And it's kind of crazy because you don't see a lot of artists actually evolve through their music anymore. NF being someone who's smaller time, he's got a distribution deal, but he's technically independent, running his own studio and his own, record label and everything. So yeah, it's just kind of crazy to see an artist nowadays actually evolve through music when you watch them, instead of seeing them, I don't want to say not evolve or devolve, but definitely
stay stagnant.
I don't think you see the same lane. They either switch it up completely, they don't evolve that style.
Yeah, 100%.
So
I definitely see that. And anybody could appreciate NF for his, versatility overall, because it does take a lot for somebody to come up on one way and completely switch ways and, grow a fan base for one style of music and still continue to carry over a large portion of that fan base into something completely different.
100%. So, respect to anybody who does evolve. I'm not shitting on them. I'm just saying,
it kind of sounds like you're shitting on, and I'm just kidding.
It kind of sounds like you're shitting on, NF. This is the one artist I will say, fucking fight me. He's like, he's got reach on me. He kicked my ass with reach.
We'll get it set up.
Yeah.
God damn.
I don't know, man. He sounds like a pretty violent rapper. He
yeah,
maybe not. Like, he might be crazy. It's like, I don't swear, but I'll fucking cut you up. And it's like, yo, man, I was just kidding. Chill.
Yeah, no joke.
But yeah, let's switch it over. Let's get over to the number one, the king of your music artist. Who is the numero uno?
For the last 5 minutes, I've been putting some thought into this, and other than that, I haven't put any thought into this. And it's a dead tie between probably X and Juice WRLD, just because for me, those two artists really impacted the music culture for a long run. And, RIP to both of them. But, there is so many people that can relate to a lot of their music in so many different ways, forms, and fashions that it's crazy. You listen to one of their songs and with 5 people in the room, and 5 people can pull 5 different reasons why they like that song, And for me, they had a very big impact and change with what music was and what music is going to be, I'd say. Because to this day, there's still people that are, influenced by their music. I actually have a buddy on Snapchat who hasn't, just dropped a song with XXX, even though X has been dead for a year and a half, 2 years now.
Got like 2 years.
And with that, how does he do it? Well, obviously he had an unreleased verse from him, but from there, that's still, years down the road, he's impacting people still. And the music that's coming out today, you can hear Juice WRLD and many artists, even like Cole said, myself, and many artists just all around the nation and all around the world. Honestly, you can hear the similarities from styles, and you can always appreciate some good music that you can just always vibe to, whether you're sad, happy, mad, whatever it might be. It's just great music, period.
Oh, of course. And I love that number one. I will say personally, I was never much of a Triple X fan in his lifetime. Unfortunately, I kind of got the word of legal issues he was going around and never really kind of cared to check him out until afterwards. Until I kind of got the word of his comparison between Juice WRLD and everything. Obviously, we're not even gonna talk about anything. The guy's dead and gone. The only thing we have really to kind of discuss anywhere is his music, because his actions, well, he's kind of already paid more than a price for that. Phenomenal artist. And I see with Juice WRLD where kind of the connection is, because Juice is definitely someone who I would say in the past handful of years is probably the most, fastest rising artist in my life, as far as, how I rank and how I appreciate artists, because I didn't really even find him until Goodbye and Good Riddance back in 2018. And even then, it was off of the popular songs that you kind of heard going on the radio. It was Lucid Dreams. Lean With Me is actually the first ever Juice WRLD song I heard. And so I was kind of hooked on it from then. But even then, I just thought this was one of these like pop rappers, maybe released one or two good songs, shrugged it off, and just kind of kept moving with my life, looking to find good music. Jumped back around, found All Girls Are the Same, and then actually started looking into, some of his other albums. I believe he released Death Race for Love in 2019 around that time. Fell in love with Robbery as far as the song goes. And then, all of a sudden one day I just, boom, find out he's gone. And that one for me was kind of one of the hardest celebrity deaths to take, just because I'd really connected with this artist, but I had only found a limited repertoire of his. Like, he didn't have a lot that was going on because he was so young. And then talking about Legends Never Die, I almost threw that in a top 5 album for me. I'd probably put that as number 6 on my list.
Fair enough.
Because, and I know obviously this is a lot of work when you're talking about the studio, the producers, you're talking, when you make a posthumous album, it is really hard to get everything together. I can only imagine what it was like for anybody putting together Tupac's albums in the late 90s, which were chart toppers. And that was kind of the first time you really saw someone come out with just album on top of album on top of album after they had already passed. And I mean, Legends Never Die for me, songs like Righteous, Smile, Life's a Mess, Come and Go with Marshmello, which I think was actually the first single on that album. Wishing Well, it's just an amazing album. And I know that they talk about there's more unreleased Juice WRLD. I hope to God it never ends, but every time you talk about it, there just has to be this pit in your stomach, because one day it's going to end. Exactly. Because we don't get new Pac anymore. We don't get new Biggie. They might throw this rehashed, recycled verse that they threw in the early 90s, and they might throw it onto a new song, but it's actually not new music. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little sad to kind of think of it at the end of the day, that we're not going to there's going to be a day we don't hear anything new from these guys.
It definitely is sad. And, that's also one crazy thing about technology, I think, is, as true as that might be, I wonder if one day we might have the tools. Maybe they do have the tools now where they can almost completely reconstruct somebody's voice and continue with, obviously they can't take the person themselves, but they can get the closest to it with the music that they actually have. So it's going to be crazy to see that with where our technology goes, how much they can actually do with what they have.
Yeah, and ideally, my first kind of quarter thought to that was just to really shit on it and just be like, well, there's no soul, so who gives a shit? But also, the same can kind of be said for the evolution of Mozart playing the piano in a grand hall for kings and queens all the way up to Skrillex and dubstep. I mean, you're talking about a guy with a singular piano and then a guy with only a computer. Both is considered music, both is adored by millions, or for Mozart was adored by millions at his time, maybe is still now, but it's just kind of crazy to see the evolution of music, and I don't think I can really put a judgment onto that. I just don't know how I'll feel about it when that day comes. If you hit 60-year-old grandfather Cole with a modified robotic Juice World song, I might punch my fucking grandkids. This ain't music. I'll tell you little shits what's music. Back in my day, rappers were real. They had face tattoos and pink dreads, and they fucking dressed like unicorns. Be one of those old heads who believes his generation's music was the best.
For real. But enough of that. What is your number one?
Number one album. And once again, you should just guess this, growing up in the Midwest in the time that I did. I'm going to place another tie at the top of the list like I did the bottom of the list. The Eminem Show and Recovery.
Okay.
So I guess I'll start with you because I can go on a tangent about these, and I might. For you, what do you know about these albums, Paul?
You know, I listened to them a lot, especially I'd say, what grade was I in? I'd say 8th, 7th.
I was about to say, you probably would have been in middle school when Recovery went out.
Yeah, when Recovery came, I'm trying to think here.
You're probably still shitting yourself when the Eminem Show came out.
Yeah, no, the Eminem Show I don't know too much about. Obviously, I've listened to a lot of Eminem, but I like to pick up on a lot of artists currently and where he's at currently. So I like to listen to a lot of that.
Well, if you want a study point just to go back some classic lyricism, I mean, the Eminem Show, I'm personally a little biased. I used to listen to this. I mean, we'd be taking road trips to see family in Minnesota, Wyoming, different places, just driving a lot in this portion of my life. And I probably front to back this album more times than I could count. But, I mean, you're talking classic hits like White America, Business, Cleaning Out My Closet, Square Dance, Soldier, Say Goodbye to Hollywood, Without Me, Drips, which is literally a song about catching an STD. Sing for the Moment, Superman, When the Music Stops, Till I Collapse, My Dad's Gone Crazy. This is a 20-song album that just, I mean, slaps more than half the time. It's like Tom Brady when it comes to Super Bowls. It hits more often than it doesn't. And then Recovery, you know, that was kind of his come-out party, because obviously everybody who knows Eminem knows the story arc. Becomes famous, battles addictions with prescription pills, puts out Relapse, which personally I was a big fan of because I was a goofy-ass 14-year-old, so... Yeah, I loved about Eminem rapping about this really goofy shit, but Recovery comes out and that kind of felt like his sober album when he really kind of got his life on straight. And I mean, this album for me, I still go back over the last 11 years. I still listen to Spacebound on a weekly basis. Favorite song from the entire album. Love the Way You Lie, international hit. You know, everybody knows that song. No Love with Lil Wayne and Eminem. I mean, probably one of his better lyrical verses that I've ever seen. And that's just kind of that just is the surface of it. I could literally list off every track and why I have it started in my phone. But I mean, classic albums. That's
Definitely.
all you can say.
And, you know, one thing I can say about both those albums, I know, you know, if you put on any of those songs, I could definitely jam out to every single one of them and probably know the lyrics to almost all of them. Like I said, my squirrel memory just doesn't allow me to remember a lot of that stuff off the top. But with that, I know Soldiers would definitely have to probably be my favorite one out of there. And I don't know what it is about it, but I always would listen to that one. I remember I made a YouTube video to Soldiers, and I don't know if I could ever find it, but I don't know if I'd ever want to find it. But
that was hard Eminem. That was like rapping about his ex-wife Eminem.
Exactly. And, you know, it's crazy to see from album to album how much Eminem really progress, you know, the whole move of his life and how he took it on and how he made the sacrifices necessary to become who he is to this day. And to be that old and still involved in music is very impressive. It's almost like UFC fighting, you know. You don't see a lot of 40-year-old UFC fighters or anything, or, you know, you don't see just the age. You don't see a lot of people stay in the industry for a long time. And it's cool to see somebody who is still in this industry today and has been in it for, you know, quite some, 2 decades now, actually. So,
oh, shit, almost 3. I mean,
is it 3?
You're talking about his original mixtape was released in 1996. Definitely was rapping and shit before then. So it was going on in hip hop battles in the early to mid 90s. So yeah, I'd say almost 3 generations.
Yeah,
which
is just crazy.
Oh, it's amazing. And I'll kind of, you know, end everything with this here. You know, Eminem, I love every single one of his albums. A lot of people say he's kind of fallen off over the years, that his flow's a little bit different now. I still see lyrically he's on another level. I don't think there's a lot of artists who compare with him. I see a guy who's maybe gotten a little bit bored with hip hop, But I mean, when you've revolutionized the game a couple of times over, I guess, what do you really have to do at the end of the day?
Exactly.
And that's
he
where
doesn't have anything to prove to anybody.
Exactly. So I'm gonna drop the mic on that. Personally, argue this if you want. He's the greatest rapper of all time, in my opinion. Like I said, argue it if you want. I'm gonna hear all of the haters after this talking about some fucking shit. And I swear to God, if you mention another rapper after Eminem, the only rappers I'm gonna take over that is Pac, Big, maybe Andre. Andre, I got a lot of respect for. People do not talk about Andre 3000 enough nowadays. Kids, go listen to some motherfucking Outkast. Learn yourself some knowledge. But yeah, that's where I'm going to end off here. Once again, Paul, I really want to thank you for coming on the show here.
No problem, man. And thank you for having me. Honestly, it's been an awesome time, and I'm glad that we can continue to do this.
Of course. Once again, thank you to TopWav Studio. Also going to give a special shout out to Paul Geisler and Ethan and Bob with the business entertainment as well. Definitely helped out big on the first podcast. Definitely hope to be collaborating with them in the future. But yeah, just want to say thank you guys for tuning in. I love you all, and we're out.